So the pre-drill assembly mounts to the tram rail in the same way that the butt router mounts to the tram rail. This pre-drill assemblies are available for all 4 different styles of Magnum tram rail, from serial number DJ2000 to current. The primary difference is the back plate where it mounts to the tram rail. Other than that, all the rest of it is pretty much the same. So we talked about this has got to come down, it's got to hit the front of the jam, and you got to pull it out a little bit to get it to go in, to get it to go between. That adjustment is made right here. These jacking bolts here on both sides, there's a bolt from this side that locks the jacking nut, so we loosen the bolt on the back side and adjust these in or out to get the main bar in the right location so that you have to snap it in front of the jam. For the pre-drill. Because we're creating an 1.25 inch space that goes between the door and the jam, that means that this distance from the distance from the front of the jam to the back of the mortise must be 1 1/8 inches. And from the face of the door to the back of the mortise must also be 1 1/8 inches. If it does not, then the pre-drill holes will appear to be in the wrong locations, and we will look at that when we get to error correction later in the video. So when setting up the pre-drill, first thing we're going to do is cut our hinge mortise, making sure that you have your 1 1/8 and 1 1/8. Then we'll set the hinge in the pocket, make sure that it's tight in the pocket, and then use a pencil. We'll draw a circle where each of the holes are going to go. That. Right? So that's where our holes want to be. So then we can bring the pre-drill over with the motor shut off, put it down in the right location, snap it into place, clamp the door, and I can pull the handle down and look in here at the pre-drills and line them up with the holes. Right? So how do we line them up? So the adjustments, if you loosen the 2 bolts up front, there's 2 bolts in the back, and then once you've loosened those, there are adjustments here and here to adjust it left and right to line it up with the holes in the hinge. Right? Then for front to back, there are 2 bolts under here, one here and one under there that you loosen, and then the adjustment bolt is here. The same happens on the other side. There are 2 more bolts up under here on the other side and another adjustment spool. So as you adjust these, you can move it forward or backwards across the mortise. Once you get it lined up with the pencil marks, then you can drill one to test it and see how that lines up. And if you need to make minor adjustments after that, then you can do that. So if you look at this one, it looks like this hole needs to go out further and this hole needs to go out further. But the distance from this hole to this hole is fixed. You can't spread them apart. So the question is, what's wrong? How do I get that hole to line up with that and that hole to line up with that? The answer is that this particular mortise is not 1 1/8 front to back. Spacer block that's 1 1/4 in here, so I can put that between the door and the jam. That gives me my 1 1/4 spacing. When I put this in here and hold it tight, I can line the holes up on the hinge with the holes in the door and the jam, and I can see that there's a gap here and a gap here that need to be closed up because this mortise is not correct. When I have the mortise correct, then the holes will line up. The hole needs to move this way and the hole needs to move that way, which again we can't do because the distance from this hole to this hole is fixed. But if we check our 1 1/4, we'll find out that it's way more than 1 1/4. See how that moves back and forth? So what that means is that this mortise is less than 1.1 inches, and this one is less than 1.1 inches. We need to make those greater to line the holes up. So this mortise is correct. As you can see, the pre-drill holes tend to line up pretty well. We might want to go back just a tiny bit, but it's pretty good. And when we hold it tight in there, then this goes in with very little play, if any. So we've got our 1.25 inches, we've got our 1.1 inches, and our 1.1 inches, and the holes line up.
To learn how to adjust the gap between the edge of the door and the edge of the jamb, please see our how-to video titled Adjusting Door to Jamb Spacing.